Several months ago, I did a video on the top 5, well, the first 5 purchases that every games master that's going into Shadowdark should purchase. And I'm not going to beat around the bush in this video. This book is straight into that top 5. I know which one's gone and which one it's replaced, but this is, I think, definitely a book that every dungeon master, games master that is running Shadowdark or 5e should have in their collection. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Adrian for Dungeon Dyslexia, and this is absolutely amazing. The book that I'm looking at and reviewing today is Delve. I've had the PDF copy now for around about a week. I initially backed this on Kickstarter, so I don't know, this is like an apology maybe, I don't know whether they're taking late pledges at all or not, because it's now on BackerKit. I don't know whether you can find it on Kickstarter or you can go straight to BackerKit and actually do a late pledge. It has been created by Bob Worldbuilder, which anyone watching my channel is going to know exactly who he is. He's a very prolific and very well-known and respected YouTuber. I say this is a book that, well, I'm just going to show a little bit of the project. It's for Shadowdark and 5e. I've been sent the PDF copies of both. I'm waiting for the physical copies to arrive, but I kind of wanted to jump on this now. So if late pledges are available, I'm telling you to go and buy this because it is absolutely amazing. So it's actually got 12 dungeons, loads of monsters, loads of magic items, traps, new player options, I think 4 new spells, 4 ancestries, and 7 amazing new classes. Okay, so I'll link this Kickstarter to it as well. I'll put this in the video description, and that hopefully will take you to BackerKit, and say hopefully you can get it. If not, once this gets to retail, assuming it's coming to retail, you want to get this and add this to your collection. If neither of those are possible, then I'm really sorry. But I'm sure actually if you reach out to Bob Worldbuilder, I'm sure they're going to have a load. I'm not going to go through the 5th edition one. You know, my channel is mainly focused around Shadowdark, and this is the version of the book that I've probably ran through and played. I've actually played a couple of the dungeons using my minuscule solo rules. So here's the front cover. I think it's perfectly set here for Shadowdark. And lead designer, so we got J.A. Valeur, I think that's pronounced, and S.K. Valeur, and Rob Mason, which is Bob Worldbuilder. There's design contributors as well from here that I think most people will have heard of. We've got Ginny D, Runehammer, Baron Derop, Dungeon Craft, Will from D&D Shorts. If I haven't read you out, it's not that I don't know who you are, I'm just don't want to spend all time just telling everyone exactly. So this is it's a passion project, it feels like, you know, comes from wonderful brains, wonderful designers, and incredibly talented YouTubers. It's also packed. It is 313 pages, which the Kickstarter said it's going to be around about 200. Well, here you go. You've got 200 plus. And I know 313 is 200 plus, but I was not expecting it to be quite so prolific. So let's just look at the contents. We've got credits here, then we've got foreword from Kelsey Dion herself, then an introduction from Bob, and then how to use the book. We've then got this chapter 1, which is the Dungeon Master section, which I actually thought was going to be the section that I wasn't going to really like the most, because as we get into it, it talks about the history of dungeons and the different types of dungeons you can have. And actually, I found it fascinating. It's changed the way I've been building dungeons for 35 years. You know, I've used Chubby Funster's and Kelsey's dungeon building rules. I use 2D6 Dungeon as well by Toby Lancaster. And this has actually changed the way I now create dungeons for my players and for myself. We'll then get to chapter 2, which is the Dungeon Delvers. Oh, it is all hyperlinked as well. This has actually got amazing hyperlinks throughout the PDF. You can click on them during the adventures and it will jump you through to the monster or traps. There's traps in here at the end. So we've got these 4, I think it was 4 ancestries in here. So 7 new classes, 4 new spells, which are directly linked to the classes. So obviously Dark Mishaps. They've taken the time to do the titles for all 7 of the new classes. We're then going to get into chapter 3, which is 12 pre-generated dungeons. I've ran through 2 of them using my solo rules, and they are great fun. The one downside of this at this moment, you don't get all the VTT stuff, but it is an additional stretch goal. I think I paid $10 additionally, to get the VTT, so I should have all the maps and things like that, which obviously you're going to want, and even potentially to be able to print these off. I think, well, you could print them off out of the book as well, but happy to support this project. It's brilliant. And then 210 pages for the last 100 pages, load of magical items, what's that, 50 odd pages of creatures, all the traps, the effects, events, rival adventurers, some shops and some shopkeepers, the riddles, which we'll skip over obviously, the dungeon contest rules, and then finally the 10 tenets of Delvin, or could call these the 10 commandments here. Starting off with a little quote here from Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. So we've got the foreword from Kelsey herself, then an introduction from Bob Wildbuilder. So what is the book? I've pretty much covered the chapters, say it is in the 4 chapters, but when reading the book, there are monsters, traps and hazards that are in bold, and some of them will hyperlink through. Others, you'll need a core rulebook of the Shadowdark, and the spells and magic items are italicized. I think that's how it says. Who's this book for? Because this is actually for Shadowdark, any games master can run this, and you could easily adapt this to D&D, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Pathfinder, Knave, DC20, Daghart. I know it's just some examples, but any of the old school stuff, I think you could pretty much, even old school essentials, you could pretty much convert this nice and easily. So chapter 1 talks about the history of the dungeons, where they first came around. And I've never even thought about this, that a dungeon in essence has boundaries, which it does, but again, never thought about it. So this just kind of blew me, this section. Normally I'll look at this stuff and I know it's text heavy, but it was really interesting. Talks about the reality of dungeons, and then we've got the history, going through the history, so like pre-fantasy genre, popular cultures, how war games started in the 1960s, coming up to Gygax and Arneson creating Dungeons and Dragons. The first technical dungeon is Castle Blackmore, which was the dungeons underneath Dave Arneson's home. It was his home adventure, which it came out through. And this will take you through some history and examples all the way up to 2014's Lost Mines of Pandelpha, which I've actually never played that one. Yeah, I think that was the start set, wasn't it, for 5e? This is fascinating, types of dungeons. And again, I've always just created a dungeon. Not really thinking about whether it's a linear dungeon, going from A to B to C, a 5-room dungeon, a small one, symmetrical dungeon, these Jaques dungeons, which was from the caverns of Thracia and the Dark Tower. This is going to give you multiple entrances, possibly including an entrance to the midpoint or end of the dungeon, branching paths. So, so really a non-linear dungeon. Then we've got lock and key dungeons, which are the sort of things you get in computer games where, you get to a locked door, then you have to go back, or a different way to go and find it. Balkanized dungeons, funhouse dungeons, mega dungeons, and prototypical dungeons. So go and read all this. It will help you as a games master create better dungeons. Okay, and then building dungeons, again, wonderful section, because one thing I've never really thought about, I've always done current purpose of dungeons. What is it currently being used for, who occupies it, and why. Never really considered the original purpose. Why was it built in the first place? Again, think about from a psychological point of view. If you can relay that to the players, it's going to make the dungeon more alive. Obviously, you'll then have the theme of the dungeon. Is it monsters, puzzles, dungeons, dragons, things like that? What's in there? And then, obviously, layout. From there, the most important part of layout is size. Okay, and all of this, there are random tables coming up that is going to help you as a games master just build. Okay, talk about areas, what's in there, etc. Entrances and connections. How are the rooms connected? Is it doorways? Is it tunnels? Pace. Do you have challenges every 2 to 3 rooms, or do you make it a lot slower and a lot harder, 1 to every 3 rooms? Points of no return. So the first ever adventure I've written, I've submitted an adventure for Raptor Ruckus that has got one of these. Never really thought about it before. Point of no return. They'll get to a certain point. something will happen, which means they can't go back. So they're only ever going forward in the dungeon. There's some hints and tips to control the pace. If you want to speed it up or slow it down, you can introduce more effects, events, reset the dungeon if they come out, or sealed, or can you add things to create a time pressure. So this is mainly going to be around traps, or maybe something is filling up, or lava, things along those lines. The dungeon challenges, we'll talk about the difficulty, the quality, and also the variation, because you want to keep a dungeon varied. You don't want to have every room have the same trap or the same monsters throughout, but it really talks about it all making sense. How to use traps, the purpose of trap, telegraphing a trap. Don't just allow the players to walk down a dungeon and then suddenly they're in the middle of a trap. They're not going to thank you for it. Every now and again, absolutely fine, but give them some sort of hints and tips. Hazards are something that they should see, should be obvious. Is there a massive crevasse in front of them? A big lake that just fills the room. Something like that, something designed to slow them down, make them think, make them worry. So not like a trap, and then obviously you've got things like obstacles, whether it be doors, puzzles, things like that. Then finally, give them their reward. And this talks about using treasure, and we've all done this. Like, be restraint. We've all had campaigns that we've absolutely messed up because we've given too many or too powerful a magical item too early in an adventure. I've done it, and I'm sure everyone watching has done this. So it's a really good section that's going to help you as a games master build it. Now, here we then have a dungeon generator, which I've played with. And don't worry, if this feels a little bit stressful or feels like a lot to take in, it's not, okay? But at the end of this section, there's a wonderful example which will nice and easily just explain how to go through it. So, get your D6s and your D20s and D8s out, and you're just rolling and creating a dungeon. My advice is don't do this live with players yet. I think there is a part of me that thinks this would be a really interesting thing to do with players and just randomly create a dungeon. But it does mean, normally get 4 people on my Tuesday night. One night, 2 people drop out at the last minute. I can't carry on with the adventure I was going to do. Let's just pop up some Shadowdark characters and I can just randomly create any dungeons that you want. Obviously, there's 12 in this book anyway, but if you want to create your own, this is how you can do it. So initially, you're going to look at the purpose of the dungeon. So what was it created for? Was it for knowledge? Was it an archive, college? So it gives you examples and then some typical areas to build your theme. So you've got to be thinking initially. So you're then going to talk about the actual theme. Is it an Eldritch theme, Frozen, and is it primordial in here? So this is going to be a 3d20 roll, and it gives you a 2d20 because it gives the examples. We've got some flavors. Is it haunted, luxurious, profane, ruined? And there's plenty of examples out. You're then going to build the layout by initially rolling a d6 to see whether you go from a tiny to a huge, and this will just tell you how many areas or rooms you're going to have and how many entrances to the dungeon itself. And then the connecting rooms and entrances, they may be passageways, doors, passageway and a door, or a passage with 2 doors, and there may either be no challenge there, locked, trapped, or concealed. Okay, so that seems simple, hopefully. So we're then going to look at the dungeon area itself. So you've created an area. So let's say in this small one, we've got 2d4 plus 2. So we roll 2 on that. So we've got 4. Okay, so we're then going to roll a d20 4 times to look at the areas. You'll then give you an example of what the features of that room is to help with descriptors. And then you've got your challenge and discovery. This took me a few seconds to work out, so I'm just going to spend a little bit more time explaining it here. You'll probably get it faster than me. But challenge, so all you're going to do is roll a d4 and a d6 if you roll the foyer, and then you go down here, and it'll either give you a trap or hazard, nothing, an encounter, or a big encounter. And then it tells you and hyperlinks you through to the page number to go to the table, okay? So, for example, we've rolled the foyer here, so we're going to roll a d4. So 50% of the time in the foyer, there's not going to be a trap or a hazard. And let's say we roll on a d4, you get a 1 and a 5 on this challenge dice. So then go to an encounter, and I can just click here, which is then going to take me to the random encounters, which is in here, okay? So I'll just scroll back. That's as simple as it is. So you're going to do that with challenges and discoveries. Discoveries should give the player something like information, treasure, or big treasure. So challenges and discoveries, I say, give you the idea of the dungeon's purpose, etc. It's going to give you some treasure. There's a lot of magical items towards the back of the book, and it gives you an idea of cost and how the value of the items there should be. Shadowdark has got an awful lot of magic items and things in there. Give you some idea of magical items they can find, magic armaments as well. Some traps and examples of traps. Okay, these might seem a little bit, I don't know what these traps are going to do. Don't worry, these are all linked at the back of the book, and it will explain with some incredible art as well. I haven't even talked about the art throughout this book, which, as you see as we go on, is phenomenal, the way it all fits in. And take you through the effects, events, encounters, and then here's the amazing example. So I want to also talk about quickly the font and layout of this book. As dyslexic, this has been an absolute dream to read. It's so clear, so laid out. There's so many paragraphs, breaks, and it doesn't use finally, not finally for these complicated or difficult fonts. Everything you can look at, I can clearly see and make out the letters. Okay, chapter 2 is where this gets really exciting. So we're going to look at these ancestries. I say there are 4. We've got the Deepspawn, and these have the ability to shapeshift into a different aquatic creature. We've got the Graveborn, which can either be ghost skeletons or zombies, which once per day are going to do something that is around sort of ghost skeleton or zombie ideas. Medusae, I think that is. It's going to come with a petrifying gaze. See what I mean about the art as we go through it. Mycelian, which is a mushroom person, which can shoot spores. Stoneborn. Oh, this has the ability to petrify itself, turn to stone, and you can't do a lot, but you can't really be damaged or anything like that. So you can just sort of lock up and also hide in places. Well, they hide in plain sight. So yeah, Stoneborn, that's cool. So we've then got, so it's 5 actually. I thought it was 4, so maybe I can't count. But we've then got 7. I'm hoping it's going to be 7 because that's what my notes say. Classes. First one here is the Golemmancer, which employs arcane knowledge in the pursuit of construction perfection. Key thing about this, they're sort of like a half-caster if you think around 5th edition. They do come with spells, but they have got this golem over here that is going to be a pet type thing that's going to go and act on their turn, but rather frighteningly, this actually levels up with the player, which is absolutely amazing because you don't see this in many games. You start with a pet or a familiar or whatever it may be that tends to be static throughout the game, and games basically then get you to change it as you level up. This doesn't. This is just going to keep going. So I like it. I do really like that. We've got this Keeper class here, which they're good at protecting secrets. As you can see, they are full weapons, full armor, D6 hit points, and they get spells as well. So they are a spellcasting martial class. Okay, they're very good at keeping secrets, as you can imagine, and very good. It gives them an advantage on sneaking around and stuff. So it's kind of a martial thief rogue type character. Okay, the Nightcaller. So these are devout clerics who see darkness as the source of strength, overflowing with power ready to be wielded for those brave enough. So as you can imagine from a cleric, you don't get the full range of club, crossbow, mace, staff, and warhammer, but they do get some. They get this Darkmire, which is their specific spell. They get Umbral Casting, so they don't get the disadvantage by casting spells in the dark. And then they're going to get full spell casting ability of the priest. And then we've got Relic Hunters, very Lara Croft-esque, but these are adventurers who collect magic charms. So they don't cast spells, but they do. So they don't really use magic, but what they have is these magic charms. So every time they level up, they can either roll on their Relic Hunter talents or get a new magic charm. And this is a D6 where they can, say 1 to 5 will give them an ability to cast 2 spells from there. So if they roll a 1, they're going to have a charm somewhere on their person, which will give them Feather Fall and Levitate. And obviously you've got the impact of, casting spells in there. Shadespawn class, these are priests that draw power from the border of the realms of light and darkness. They can cast shape shadows. So these have one of their spells when they when someone dies, they can create a shadow from that person that's again going to fight alongside them. A lot of the classes in here have got an ability to have a companion alongside them. I've always enjoyed companions, and this is good. It's a full caster. You know, you can get up to tier 5 spells, as well as having your own personal shadow. Then we've got the Shadow Dancer, which are masters of infiltration and subterfuge. So they come with these blade dances. They really feel very much in my head like they may have been inspired by the Elven War Dancers from Warhammer, because of just the way the bladed attacks works. I know 5th edition's going to have an equivalent, but these are, you know, advantage on sneaking and disguising themselves. And then once a day, they can create a convincing shadow double of themselves that's, again, is going to fight alongside them. And then I think the Slime Bender is my favourite, because it is so bizarre and obscure that it's absolutely amazing, because they get to have slime bullets and they have a slimeling pet that goes alongside them, as well as their dissolution here, so they can become a puddle of ooze for an hour. You drop all your gear but retain your stats. So I love the fact that they drop everything, become this naked puddle of goo, and they can just climb walls and just sneak around as this, well, it's going to be a bit of an obvious green goo, but yeah, really good class. And then we've got the 4 spells, which are related in and specific to here. So we've got the Censure, the Darkmire, the Dominate Shadow, and Shadow Bolt. Shadow Bolt, as it sounds, is the attacking one. Dominate Shadow, so one creature within range is impeded by a shadow in half, and if that target dies, that's the one where you can create the shadow. Censure, you rebuke your enemies, forcing them into silence. So this is for all foes within near range. You can actually mute them. And then finally we've got Darkmire here, so you can conjure darkness to grasp your enemies, and any area within becomes total darkness for 1 round. Foes with the darkness must make a strength check versus your spellcasting ability, or take a d6 damage and howled for a round. They have created specific dark mishaps for the tables when spellcasting goes wrong, and said they have actually done the titles, which, from talking to other designers and creators, titles tend to be one of the hardest things to come up with. And which I see, you know, we do see an awful lot of zines and stuff where they miss them out, which is kind of sad, but I can see why they do, because it's quite difficult. We're then going to chapter 3, so we're only 60 pages of the book. We've still got another 250 to go. But don't worry, this is not going to be anywhere near as long, because what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to show you. Well, I'm going to show you the dungeons, but I'm not going to sort of spoil it. I'm going to talk about the first one, Dijon of Doom, because this is one of the ones I've played, and so it's got some hints, well, some ideas, keys, I should probably say, for running it. So checks are coloured and semi-bold, so you should give you an idea. But so here we've got the 12 dungeons, all with their names, hyperlink to jump to, gives you an idea. Escape room horror, level 1 to 10. How can you have a dungeon from level 1 to 10? This is what I'm saying about this is why this is straight, or should be straight to anyone's collection. Initially, it'll give you the dungeon overview, difficulty the player. So this is what I said about this 1 to 10. So what it talks about is the TPL, which is this total party level. So you level up, you add them all together, and that will give you the party level, okay? And depending on the level overall of the party, it will help you and explain how to adjust it, which I'll show you. So I'm going to show you this Dijon of Doom as we go through it. There are some codes. Oh, I should have said, obviously you've got these QR codes as well, which may have access to things like errata sheets and helps. And as you'd imagine, like any well-written adventure, it's going to have an area in bold, which you can read out descriptors, and then things like examine, diplomacy, combat, and treasure. So here is the first one. The party is lured into a deadly dungeon where evil entities amuse themselves by placing bets on how long they can survive. To win their freedom, the heroes must bypass deadly traps, defeat deceitful foes, or face off with a frightful undead monstrosity. Gives you an idea of how long it should run for the themes, whether it's, you know, heavily combat, dangers, puzzles, or social. Give you a background. I'm not going to go through the background into the dungeons, and here gives you a couple of hooks to get in. And then we've got, say, general bits, the events that are going to go on, tells you, more importantly, which rooms are illuminated and which aren't, any sort of locked doors, the overall danger level of, so how often you're going to roll random encounters. This one, danger level none, so we're not going to be rolling those. Here is a map of the dungeon. This is I started here because it was the first one, but this is linear, so you're basically going to go from D1 all the way through to D12. Okay, and hopefully when this arrives, I'm hoping this will be separated out as a separate VTT trial. So you're just going to go through the dungeon, and just say, you've got all the descriptors in here, and it's just going to explain what you do, any sort of traps that are in. And I love the fact that, again, we're seeing this on more, and they've done this. You have got the zoomed in part of the section that's described on the 2 pages. So as a games master, you're not flicking backwards and forwards. You know, that old school where you could have 3 or 4 pages hold open with your fingers. So it gets rid of that. So this is, ignore the developments because that's kind of where we go from there. But difficulty. So this explains what happens. So if the party level, when you add it up, is 7 till 10, on level 2, you will change some of the traps. Okay, this is cumulative. So if the total party level is 39 to 42, you will do all of these steps for all of these levels. Okay, and this is what I'm saying about the link. So this is a sword ooze. You're going to put the sword ooze in. And just remember 78. So this will click on this, and it'll take me to the sword ooze. Fantastic, fantastic. More people need to set out books like this. 78, and so we've got another 11 adventures to go through. So some of them are shorter, some of them are longer. They are all uniquely themed. I say it gives you exactly what's going on in the rooms. Some wonderful, strange creatures which we're going to look at the back. I'm going to quickly show you the other one that I had a run through of, which was the Everwatch prison. So a remote prison holds some of the world's most dangerous convicts. To free or slay a prisoner, the party must navigate magical defenses, stoneborn guards, and yeah, you're basically heist prison breaking out, either breaking in or breaking out, depending on how you want to run this, which is always good because, you know, it gives you a couple of other options in here for it's just amazing. You might actually be able to, if you've watched my top 5 book games that you should buy, so I'll link to the end of the video. You can probably guess which one's out and what this is replacing. But yeah, I'm just, see what I'm saying about the artwork throughout. It's not off-putting. It tends to just really add to the atmosphere of the dungeon. So it does seem specifically written. Some of it is repeated, but again, I don't mind that, because once we get to the monster, that's some of the, you know, from the monsters in the monster section are in these, so it has got the duplicate art, but you've paid for it, and it's whoever you've used. Obviously, I did show it at the front, but I can't remember, so sorry. Go and use it again. It's absolutely stunning. And what I like is the fact that each one of these as well, because there's no background, it just perfectly seems to fit into the book. Chapter 4, so this is it. We're now heading towards the end of the chapter, end of the book, which is kind of sad, because books like this, I kind of think you want it to go on forever. But here we've got 40 odd magic items, nearly all of which, so they're all hyperlinked as well, so you can jump to them, but nearly all of which have artwork, which more companies need to do this. So we've got boots of time jump in here, so give us a description. If that wasn't enough, you can see what they look like. So you have advantage on initiative rolls. How good is that? 3 times a day, you can cause one of the effects on your turn. You teleport to a space you've occupied at any point since the start of your last turn. You vanish from existence. You reappear within close from where you've disappeared. It is cursed. So can't have everything being amazing. Braces of utility. So this Deringer's Spirit Bowl, which... always sad seeing a dog bowl without a dog around it, and we've all been there. Gone all sad now. Do come back to happy thoughts with the magic items. This is just absolutely rampant, and a lot of these magic items, say, it is hyperlinked, and when you find them in the adventure, it links to them. Okay, so It's really well laid out. Now, let's just do this. I think this is the wizard's foot. Is that the last one? It's almost the last one. So we've got a bronze sandal wearing foot and a leg that it can be wielded as a hammer. So it's a +1 warhammer, +3 if used against objects and structures. And on benefit, it can cause a shot wave. Creatures other than you, so everybody else, even your friends, are going to take a d6 damage and must roll a DC 15 check or fall down. That's going to be quite tough. So be careful. If you get that, do not stand next to the person. Then we've got round about another 40 creatures. So all of these creatures pretty much are the creatures from the adventure. You will need some more from Shadowdark, but again, hyperlinked through. Every creature, I think off the top of my head, I couldn't find one that didn't have artwork. I may be wrong when we actually get into it. But some of these also, as we go through, you'll go, that looks familiar. And that's because it's some of the classes from earlier. But more importantly, they will be some rival adventurers, which we're going to see coming up. That so we saw this Eldritch Horror in the book earlier, which is nasty creature. But yeah, so some of them, so like this Knoll Putrifier, I think that's how it's pronounced, is going to come up later, and the Keeper comes up as one of the rival people that you can link back to. So we've seen this art here, but it means that you can, if the players don't play these classes, you can, as a games master, you can still throw them at them. And we've got this giant oozing dragon here, oozing kobolds. So there's a bit of a theme going across here. The cool shadow dancer, the shape shadower as well, elemental spell. You've got the stoneborn warrior, which I think I'm going to have a lot of fun as a games master playing, because there's not a lot they can do once they shift. And one of the big bads here is this time eater, which is phenomenal. You just all can just see the sense of these sort of power stones just rotating around him. Amazing looking thing. And then we get this watcher, which with got all these little sort of separate eyes that are going to come off onto there, Satan and zombies. Phenomenal, absolutely amazing. Traps and hazards, touched on this earlier when you could roll for them, and this just links all through and gives you the hazard and trap tables. And wait till you see what the artwork they've done with these traps. So here we have the actual breakdown of the traps and some artwork to go alongside some of the traps, so you can actually see, this is brilliant, absolutely brilliant, just how they work and how they're going to explode and what they're going to do. Collapsible ceilings. So we've got a dead zone fungi, which is hazard and mundane. The fungi causes magic to go array. Gives you an example in here, and then just a breakdown of how it all works. This is good. Like this one, this is my favorite one. This sort of gas fire blowing, it's like a demon type thing. When I originally saw it, I thought it's more piggy, but it's not. It's got horns, I think, on there. I don't think. Well, actually, I think 3.5 D&D 3.5 did have some examples of traps and drawings of traps in the trap section. Then got a full breakdown of effects and events. Again, coming back from earlier in the book. Then we get the rival adventurers. We've got two different parties here, and it tells you exactly who the characters can be and what the background of the party is and how they want to work, what their goals are, and you can adjust it as well for the levels of the party. Shops and establishments, because everyone needs to go and spend their gold on something if you're not going to be carousing. And then some riddles, which I'm going to skip over. And then you've got a dungeon contest as well, if you're going to basically be running the adventures and keep score. And then finally, the book is going to close down with the 10 tenets of Delvin. So it's talking about setting the scene, bite the hook, commit to things, know your skills. Track resources, map the dungeon, be observant, bargain, ask questions, don't split the party. Never split the party, not in a dungeon. Well, it's bad enough splitting it anywhere else, but dungeons can be deadly. And then we've just got a final random table at the back. I don't think I need to tell anymore why you should go and buy this. Well, if you can, and if you can't, and it is a Kickstarter exclusive, I don't remember seeing it was all back exclusive, then I'm really sorry for talking about this. But there is not a single fault that I have found with this book. It is, to say perfect is the wrong thing, because obviously I haven't completely played. You know, there's 10 of the dungeons that I haven't played, and I haven't play tested fully all the classes. But as a games master's tool, this is by far within that top 5 of all books that, if you're running Shadowdark, that you should go and buy. Okay, go and watch my video. I'll link to it just beyond here so you can see what the other 4 will be. Let me know in the comments below if you can work out which one I would take out. And the one that I take out is still going to end up sort of 6 or 7. I probably really need to redo the video. But this is, I think, and I hope you can see just how amazing this book is. So, you know, even from the start where it talks about, and as I say, I really thought that was going to be the hardest part of the book, but it's very much a schooling lesson in the psychology of dungeon and dungeon building, which will make you as a games master think about dungeons a lot more. You're going to make them a lot more alive. You're going to make them feel vibrant. And if you're doing that, your players are going to enjoy them a lot more, because it's going to make sense. We've all been in dungeons and go, why is that in that room? It just doesn't flow. This you can make flow. It's very, very quick. It's a brilliant, wonderful example. The classes read fun. The ancestries are good and interesting. Obviously, you know, you've got the underwater one, which is going to be a little bit harder to fit into all games. But then, you know, Chubby Funster's got, I think it's a sailor in one of his, and there's no reason why you just let players play what they want and run through it, because at some stage it's going to come up and it will be useful. Say that the 7 classes in here are absolutely wonderful. Again, you know, you've got the titles in here: New Mishaps. 2 of the dungeons that I've played through, brilliant. The rest look good. They all make sense. You've got the motivations for getting people in, and then that back section of the book, which fully explains, you know, how all the traps and effects and hazards work, with wonderful art throughout. Ton of magic items, ton of new creatures. You're going to need Shadowdark to play this, obviously, but this should be one of the next books that you go and, you know, you go and add to your collection. I think I'm just going to leave it there. As yeah, Delve by Incredible Talents. It's an incredibly good book. It's so much. There's so much in there. Value for money. You're going to be using this for a very long time. So if you've enjoyed this video, like, share, subscribe to the channel. Go and buy this book. I've said it several times, so have you bought it yet? And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.